Hello, everybody. Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas. Going to do a little video this evening that I think you're going to find real interesting. It'll hit some things we've talked about before, and maybe some stuff that you haven't seen. And I'm going to title this "Hush Money." I've got a Facebook post here. That's what I'm going to base it off of. That I did with proof pictures, evidence on that. And so let's just get started. Hush money. Real short read here at the top. I said, Aaron Pachlhofer, the guy that told me that 4 people had been murdered, died at my home, was later given $72,000 to start up a business. The question has been asked if taxpayers' money was used to buy his silence and help cover up the multiple capital murders and crimes here. Okay, so I found this online here, Eccentric Brewing Company, and I guess he was like a home brewer, whatever. And what it says is, it says Eccentric Brewing got its start after winning a $72,000 grant awarded by the Midland Entrepreneurial Challenge. Okay, its owners, Jamie Eel, EHL, and Aaron Pachlhofer soon began local operations in May 2018. Okay, so that's where I learned that after Aaron Pachlhofer had told me, about the 4 people who had been murdered, died in my home, he was granted this huge amount of money. Okay. Seems like that Jamie Eel was in the news. I didn't look it up, and we could go back and check. And it seems like there was some kind of deal. The cops raided his house or something, and he was upset about it. Like I said, I'd have to go back and look. But that wouldn't surprise me if that wasn't directly connected to this right here. But we'll just forget that, and we'll focus on Aaron Pachlhofer. But it wasn't just Aaron. It was 2 guys. It was Jamie Eel and Aaron that got this $72,000. So when I say he got it, I just want to make that clear. Okay. Here's my next comment. I said, I suspect that Mike Lawhon, the young previous owner of my home, he was 27, and the young girl that was murdered at the 2010 Underground Oil Show party in the backyard were 2 of the 4 people who had been murdered, died here, that Aaron talked about. But I wonder who the other 2 were, and clearly they tried to make me the 5th one, obviously. Okay. This is just a print screen of what Aaron had wrote on Facebook one day, and I didn't know this man. He says, I wish you luck in life. I won't involve myself. I'm well aware of the many corruption accusations against the Midland Police Department. I'm not so sure it's a secret police scenario as much as it is pure criminal activity by the police. At the time, the secret police were still secret. They were secret for 6 years, Finally, the private investigator identified them in 2018. He says, but if I can ask, there were 4 people who were murdered, died in your house. What are their names, And so I've had some people go, oh, look, there's a question mark. He wasn't telling you there was 4 people murdered there. He was asking you. And that's the dumbest thing in the world, because he didn't say there was 14, 15, 3, 8, 7, 3. He said there was 4. That's a statement. He knew exactly how many people were murdered, died in my home. And I believe that he knows what their names are. He was just asking me if I knew what the names of the 4 people murdered, died in my home was. That is just incredible in itself. Okay. And don't forget, this is the guy that was granted $72,000. Okay. After that, while crimes continued against me. Okay. I suspected that the young previous owner of my home, Mike Lawhon, was murdered here on October 12, 2008, and then taken to Fort Worth. This happened the week before the 2008 oil show started, which seems important since it's believed there's an underground home in the backyard that was used for the oil show parties. The Odessa American posted a death notice for Mike and said he died in Fort Worth. And then 4 days later, they posted a revised death notice saying that he died at his residence, which was here in Midland. It was this home for sale at the time. A former neighbor, Marilyn DeLuigi, told me twice that Mike died here. And she also said that somebody else died here before him. Obviously, Mike and the other person was the 2 of the people that Aaron had asked me about. Okay, that seems to make a lot of sense, right? Okay, I have a link to a video for that, and I'll put it in there so anybody can, follow up for more information. This is a picture of Mike. You can see how young he is. Had 2 little boys, 27 years old. I believe he was murdered here and taken to Fort Worth to his mom's house. Okay, Susan Tennis. So there's a whole long story with that. Here's the Odessa American. This was posted online for probably 10 years. You know, it was confusing at first because there's 2 death notices in 2 different places, you know, and I finally got it figured out that here on the 14th, he died on the 12th. They said he died in Fort Worth. And then 4 days later, they posted a second death notice and say he died at his residence. Okay. That is unheard of. Nobody, I've never ever heard of that in my whole life, changing the location of death on a death notice, you know, and nobody's asking questions, you know. I mean, really, right? Okay. Here's another piece. I took pictures of this home on October 1st, 2008 when I first looked at it, and Mike was still alive, which showed that the back door was fine. But 28 days later, when I met the home inspector here, that was Perkins Brazier, and Mike was dead. Okay, we found that somebody had kicked open that door. This proved a brute force home invasion happened this month. It happened the month of October 2008, and I wondered if the people who killed Mike had done that. Okay, and that's what I'm going to show you. So here I am with my realtor, and I'm going through and I'm looking at this house on the first day, just got listed on the market October 1st, 2008. And here I'm taking pictures. I happen to get this picture. That's my realtor, Janine Pruitt. There's the back door to the garage, and here it is. There's the door, and the doorknob is there. And that's the point I'm making in this picture, okay? And then here at the bottom, you know, and I have the inspection report. This is where the Perkins Brazier did the home inspection report, and we found, when we found it on the 28th, 28 days later, this is kicked out. This is gone. The doorknob was gone. Somebody kicked it in. Brute force entry in this house during that month. This was proof between this home inspection report and that picture proved, this home invasion. And during that month's when Mike died, and I believe, and I'm suspecting the guys that murdered him kicked open that door, probably chased him down, injected him with, that Darvocet or whatever, and then carried him to Fort Worth to his mom's house. That's my guess of what happened to Mike Law. Okay. So I think that's one of the 4 people that Aaron Pachlhofer was talking about. Okay. Maybe the guy that died in this house before Mike Lawhon that the neighbor had told me about, that was Marilyn DeLuigi, is the still missing man Rini Escobar Sanchez. He was reported missing 3 months before Mike died. In 2013, I contacted Odessa Crime Stoppers and suggested they send somebody to my home and they look in my west yard because there was a death smell over there right after I first moved here in 2008, and I found some half-buried, cut-up clothes over there. They didn't look because a guy named Jesus Miguel Venegas confessed to Rini's murder, even though no body has ever been found. There was a picture in the Odessa American of Jesus with an ear-to-ear grin on his face right after confessing the murder. It looked like he won the lottery, literally. I'm going to show you in a minute. I wondered if he had been bribed to confess to protect the underground homes and crimes and murders here. Also found a huge stain under a rug in the living room after moving in and what looked like a bullet hole in the rock fireplace wall. Maybe Rini was shot there, and then buried in the yard. Okay. So here I'm going to show you the first proof I'm going to show you on that is what I did here, and this is dated, this is February 5th, 2013, sent to this reporter, okay? This is an Odessa American reporter, John Vanderland, and I'm telling him I had contacted Crime Stoppers about, still missing man Rini Escobar Sanchez. And I copied and pasted what I had sent to Odessa Crime Stoppers right here, about, look here in this house, there's a death smell on that side of the yard, etc. Okay. And so, I'm sure that's in the records unless they deleted it and can no longer find it, because they're, upstanding members of society, trying to protect citizens or whatever. Rini was reported missing 3 months before Mike was suspected of being murdered here. Okay, I'm going to show you. This is the missing flyer for Rini. So this is the guy that went missing, and I'll show you the date, July 12, 2008. And it was 3 months to the day that Mike Lawhon is suspected to be a murder here, okay? And then you go back and Marilyn told me that Mike died in this house 2 different times, and then told me somebody else died here before him, and that's why I've wondered if it wasn't Rini, okay? And so then there's a whole story there about what happened. I have a video, more information. We'll do that. You can look at further investigation if you want. There, I've got the links. And this guy, Jesus Miguel Venegas, confesses to Reni's murder, so nobody comes and looks here, but the remains were never found. So Reni's remains have never been found, okay? And this guy gets pulled over for a traffic stop, confesses his murder. Look at that smile on his face. He is just tickled to death, man, like he won the lottery. I'm getting rich, That's what he looks like to me. And I'm going, somebody paid him to confess, and that way they don't have to come here, and then they're going to, uncover, the underground homes and murders and everything else. That's my guess right there. He later went to prison for a short amount of time. A huge stain was found under that rug, and what looked like a bullet hole was found in the rock fireplace right after I moved here. I wondered if Reni was killed there and then buried on the west side of Milan. Okay, this is one of them day one pictures, and of course I couldn't see under this rug, not until I was already moving in, and I pulled that rug out, and there's this huge ugly stain in. Well, when I first come in, I come in like a whirlwind. I replaced all the carpet in the whole house. It was already scheduled, brand new carpet, and painted from the ceiling, walls, everything, And so I did that in just a 2 or 3 week period right when I first moved here. But under this rug was this huge, ugly blood stain. And then in this rock fireplace was what looked like a bullet hole there. I remember telling my mom on the phone, I said, there's a hole there. I wonder if it was a bullet hole. Mom said, maybe it was, And so I wonder if Reni wasn't shot here, died right there, and buried in the west side of the lawn 3 months before Mike Lawn died, because Mike died of an overdose, okay? Clothing fragments that had been the clothing fragments that are reported to Crime Stoppers could be found for many years on the west side of my lawn. And this is just a picture I took here. Here's a piece that come in, and I'm pointing it out right here. And this is the tree on the west side of my lawn. And then, like I said, it would rain or whatever, and they'd pop up. And this was the area that I smelt that death smell on. Like when it would heat up outside, it started to get warm, and I could smell that. I mean, for a long time I could, And I even walked around the neighbor's house. I thought maybe she had died. It was, it was real strong. Of course, nobody ever looked here. And this was this was before, I'm ambushed and shot, and all this other information comes out. Okay. In October 2010, my friend Angie Mungia Hurley told me about a young girl that was murdered at an oil show party that she was at. At the time, Angie was leaving my home and at the party in 5 minutes. So I feel sure they were happening in the underground homes here, and most likely the one that looks like in my backyard on Google Maps. Okay, and phone records will prove that how long I talked to Angie. I'll just look it up. That's what happened, and I believe she's parking the Home Depot parking lot coming underground. I'm gonna say that in a minute. In 2013, the remains of a 14 to 21-year-old black girl was found outside of Midland, who I believe was that girl, since nobody seems to be trying to solve her murder. If they were, then they would be exposing the underground homes that multiple people are documented as saying are here. I suspect this is one of the 4 people that Aaron was asking me about, okay? So I'm going to show you here, okay, and anybody can do this. Go to Google Maps, put in my address, 3802 Fair Circle, Midland, Texas, and when you're on Google Maps on your phone or computer, there's a button there that says satellite or it says map screen. Okay, the map screen shows a big old large building in my backyard, but the satellite screen above ground doesn't show it. Okay, that's my point. Okay, so there's a big, I believe one of the 4 underground homes that multiple people have said was here. I mean, Joe Lozano, sheriff candidate Joe Lozano said Sheriff Painter used to hang out down there. I secretly recorded him. Multiple people documented saying they're here. And that was in the 2010 oil show party, right? That's when that happened. And then in 2013, the remains of this black girl, 14 to 21 years old, was found outside of Midland. So I suspected this was the girl that Angie told me about was murdered at the oil show party because she didn't want to prostitute. I did a recent video called Prostitute or Die, and that's what it was about. I believe that Angie was leaving my home and then parking in the Home Depot parking lot before going underground and coming back to the underground home in the backyard where the oil show parties were held. This is where it's believed this young girl was murdered at. And I'm going to show you that. This is one of my main pictures here I use all the time. This is a Google Earth map, okay? I go back in time to 2011, about 6 months before I'm ambushed and shot. One of the first things I want to show you is this what looks like a tunnel's cut coming from the back of Home Depot store, Midland Home Depot, aimed directly at my house where I'm ambushed and shot. I believe that's the people at the oil show parties that they were using this tunnel. So there might, I believe the girl that was murdered here, who I think the black girl, was in that tunnel. I think Angie used that tunnel and everybody else. And in the backyard is where I believe the underground home is here based on Google Maps. Okay, so you can see that right here, And, one day, and I told this story before, I was in Home Depot and I was telling my story to the clerk. And the clerk just blurts out and says, if you see a lot of cars in the parking lot late at night, it's because they're stalking, And I hadn't seen it. And I hadn't even thought about it. I live on the other side of Home Depot. Parking lot's on the other side of the building, But an oil show party would have a lot of people there. They would have a lot of cars. They would need parking. And they'd need an excuse to be there, right? And she was telling me what the excuse was. If you see a lot of cars in the parking lot late night, it's because we're stalking, Whole parking lot filled up full of cars or whatever, And so, and this is also where I was back here with Homeland Security on July 2nd, 2019, showing them where the human trafficking murder tunnel was at. Where I believe this girl was murdered, was at in the oil show parties and all that. So, and then here I list out, and I'm going to go over these here in a minute in another place, but this is a long list of people documented saying tunnels and underground homes are here that law enforcement could talk to and find the tunnel entrances, and I just feel 100% sure that's what's going to verify, everything I said, that they were parking at Home Depot, they were going underground, they were coming back in that tunnel, they were in that underground home, little girl didn't want to prostitute, they murdered her, Okay, so here we go. Let's go to the next one. In 2019, I showed Homeland Security where I believe the human trafficking murder tunnel was located, and 2 weeks later, the ground was dug up and concrete was poured there. I believe that Angie and the other people at the underground oil show parties used this tunnel, which may have DNA evidence in it. That's the point I'm making. Okay. This is from a video that went viral behind that Home Depot store in my house, okay? That's the area right there. There's a concrete truck, concrete coming off the truck. They're pouring concrete, okay? I had been there 2 weeks earlier showing Homeland where I believe the human trafficking murder tunnel's at. Why is Homeland important? Because they're the one that's supposed to take care of human trafficking, right? And this is a forced prostitution murder. And it's not just a single case of prostitution, This is organized prostitution, organized crime, This is their deal. And it looks like Homeland's involved in, in covering up these capital murders in association with human trafficking. That's what it looks like to me. And I'm just showing you once again, here's the same map with the tunnel. And then Ricky Ronaldo says, when I was a kid, there were tunnels in the house. Me and my brother would always go down there. He said he used to live in my house. That's what Ricky Ronaldo, law enforcement could talk to Ricky. So I believe that the young girl is one of the people that Aaron Pachlhofer had told me about. Okay. I don't know who the fourth person was, because he asked me about 4, right, that Aaron was talking about, but it's clear they tried to make me the 5th one. It's a miracle that I'm alive. They didn't cut my phone lines and shoot me by surprise with the plan of me only being crippled for life. This was premeditated, capital attempted murder. Evidence was found in 2019 that proved police were under my home, and it was somebody under my home that had shot me from a now removed trap door that the ex-wife had already told me about, with burglar alarms going off in my attic. I had first reported somebody in the attic a year earlier, and now there are almost 50 other homeowners across the nation reporting people in the attic, with a dozen addresses in Midland and another dozen in Odessa. There's also multiple people documented saying that tunnels and underground homes are here, with supporting evidence such as Google Maps. I'll show you that in a minute, okay? And I have a link to a video called What Happened that tells that, okay? This is a print screen here from minutes right after I was ambushed and shot with my phone lines cut. And some people go, why didn't you call for help? I said, they stole my cell phone and cut the phone lines to my house. I was supposed to bleed out and die, and they were going to rule it an accident, and then the childhood friend of Rosie Rodriguez, my ex-wife, was going to get the house and get an extra $650,000, She's going to get rich, and it's basically the plan as far as I'm concerned. And here is the nurse's notes at the hospital minutes later. So at 10:42, I'm crawling out, okay? At 11:23, we're at the hospital, and I'm telling Detective Rosie Rodriguez, who I didn't find out 2 years later about her being the friend of the ex-wife that had filed divorce on 5 days earlier, that's alleged to be involved in the shooting. I didn't know that, but I'm telling her, sirens are going off. The alarms kept going off. This was the nurse documenting what I'm saying. I also said there's a voice recorder, and that voice recorder recorded them burglar alarms going off, and it got stolen, you know. And then here, years later, Matthew Davis writes on my YouTube channel, buddy, I stole the evidence and nobody's ever going to find out. I got a video on that bragging, you know, police bragging about stealing evidence in a capital attempted murder. I didn't know about it. I didn't know about all these other homeowners who had reported people in the attic when I was ambushed and shot with burglar alarm squad in my attic. But now I've documented about a dozen addresses just here in Midland, with many more across the country. See, they use that against me. Oh, he's crazy. He takes people in the attic. Didn't tell me. This is going on all over the place, you know. And you know, here I am now. Like I said, I got almost 50 other homeowners documented. I mean, it's rarely a month goes by, a week goes by, somebody doesn't tell me about people in their attic. I'm hearing about it all the time. It's going on all over the place. I mean, here you see these addresses here. You know, there's Andrews, Carlsbad, Hobbs, Las Lunas. There's a dozen in Midland, okay, with these stories, many of them from a police scanner. Odessa, that's our sister city 20 minutes away. Another dozen over there, you know. I mean, these crimes are going on all over the place. It's widespread racketeering and organized crime. I believe all of them homes are rigged with a tunnel under the home, probably coming from a neighbor's house, and it's connected to a common human trafficking crime ring. You know. My security cameras saw me crawling out of my home at 10:42 after being ambushed and shot by somebody under my home with my phone lines cut and burglar alarms on the attic. I said that a minute ago. 19 minutes later, Martin County Sheriff John Woodward and the late Midland County Deputy Mike Nader were seen arriving without being dispatched. This is Midland County. So nobody's ever questioned why a sheriff from a whole number of the counties at my home minutes after a premeditated murder attempt, you know. It took 6 years, a $2,000 reward to get them identified, and by that time, Naylor was dead. Actually, 6 of the secret police were names were omitted from the police report, and so their names were not on the police report. So how they go? How they know to come to my house? You know, I believe they're in the underground home when I was shot. You know. The police report, which had been illegally withheld for 6 years, showed that Lieutenant Dickey was inside my home 4 minutes after Woodward and Naylor were seen, but he wasn't seen arriving. All of my other doors were secured with extra locks due to the crimes, and this was noted on the police reports, okay? This is what proved that Dickey, Lieutenant Dickey, came into my home from the now-removed trapdoor, which the ex-wife had already told me about, and from where the would-be killers had shot me from. Also listed at my home, but not seen arriving, was Officers Davis, Matt Davis, Chatwell, Angel, and Hale. Detective Rosie Rodriguez met me at the 7-Eleven after I crawled out and then said she wasn't there. And Officer April Chandler claimed that she was the person that had given me first aid when it was really Rosie Rodriguez that had done that. Okay, so I mean, all of these officers, I mean, there was a total of 11 secret police identified here. I'm going to show you here some of the proofs here from the timestamp security camera. I'm crawling out, or here the first 2 secret police arrived, Woodward and Naylor, at 11:01, 19 minutes after I crawled out without being dispatched, and took all them years to get identified, okay? And then the police report that was illegally withheld, it was subpoenaed in 2013, and they illegally withheld it. I didn't get it until 2019, and that's where I found it, and now we found out why, and here was time-stamped at 11:05, Dickey inside my home. He said, no one in the house, inside, and lots of odd things like booby traps, which was a lie because there was no booby traps. If there was, they would have been checked in as evidence, and there wasn't. So Dickey lied, okay, you know, but Dickey's in my house 4 minutes after they showed up, and he wasn't seen arriving, and all my other doors are locked with extra locks. Also here was Davis, Chadwell, Angel, and Hale, 5 of their officers. And really, I believe that Woodward and Naylor were under my house too. You know, they just didn't come in from the underground trapdoor entrance. They drove around to the front, you know. And then Rosie Rodriguez and Chandler, you know, if they wasn't here, they knew about it because they're the ones at the 7-Eleven after I crawled out. And they were the one lying and trying to cover up this premeditated capital attempted murder that was going to make Rosie's friend rich, okay? Multiple people are documented as saying the tunnels underground homes are here. Law enforcement could talk to these people and find out where the entrances are located and solve these many murders. Okay, they could ask Rhonda Denman Rogers, who I documented as saying that an underground facility is half block away. I'm gonna show you a picture in a minute. They could ask the woman that I recorded on the phone who told me there were 4 3-bedroom $1 million underground homes here. They were buried at least 25 foot deep. She said they were having pedophile parties down there, so they could ask about that too. There's a video on my YouTube channel called $1 Million Underground Facilities. That's that secretly recorded phone call. They could ask previous resident Ricky Ronaldo, who told me that him and his brother used to go in the tunnels under my home when they lived here. Okay, I've got a print screen of that. They could ask CAD programmer Layla O'Brien from Houston, who told me she worked on this underground safe house project that was completed in 1987 with a cost of $7.35 million. And she said that was on what'd you call that? Permit. She said that the Bushes were connected. Well, it was put in for George H.W. Bush. He was then vice president under Reagan. Okay, they could ask recent sheriff candidate Joe Lozano, who I secretly recorded, telling me that the underground homes was a hideout for the late Sheriff Gary Painter. I suspected Painter might have been there when that little girl was married. I tried to get Angie to report that murder she told me about, and she was afraid and said high-level police were there. And so I'm thinking Painter, the sheriff, was one of them. Okay, they could ask MPD officers Davis, Dickey, Chatwin, and Hell, who were time-stepped as being at or inside my house when they're not seen arriving on the security cameras that saw Woodward and Naylor minutes earlier. And he's told me they came to my home from the now removed underground trapdoor from where I'd been ambushed and shot, which the ex-wife already told me about. So there's 5 more people that could be asked. Okay, they could ask my ex-wife, who told me there was a hidden trap door in my home before I was ambushed and shot by somebody under my home. They could ask Angie McGee Hurley, who told me the young girl was murdered at the oil show party in 2010, 5 minutes drive from my home. Check them phone records. They could ask Google Maps why they're showing this this large bunker building in my backyard on the map screen, can't see him from the satellite screen. They could ask Homeland Security agent Paul, who I showed where the human trafficking murder tunnel was at in July 2019, and 2 weeks later the ground was dug up and concrete was poured. They could ask Lance Eggleston, who told me, says, we have access to your residence at all times. Nobody will ever believe your story. You will be silenced, not it, but when. And I wrote back and I said, when are you going to murder me, Lance? Obviously, he knows about the underground access. Or they could ask Shannon Jeter, who told me, buddy, cops can kill you and get away with it. Stop publicizing their business. You go buy you another home. In fact, there are many people I've asked who've asked or ordered me to sell my home who must know something, wanting me to sell my home. Why? Because they're underground home in the backyard. Since it's believed these underground homes were hosting the famous and wild oil show parties, then it makes sense that a lot of people would know about them. There should be many witnesses to talk to before anybody has to pick up a shovel. And here's a link to a video called Proof of Underground Homes and Tunnels that has some recordings in it. And this picture is what is a print screen of Rhonda Denman Rogers that tells me, she says, we're talking one night. I said, my home's sitting on some underground facility. And she says, yes, I know it's a half block away. Now, keep in mind, she didn't say it's 3/4 of a block. It's 8.5 blocks. She says it's a half block. She knew exactly how far away an underground facility was. And I believe that's it's obviously not the one in my backyard. So I think that is another one of the 4 that I was told about. And it might be in this lot right here on off Whittle Way. This is Westmont Court. That's Whittle Way. This is around the corner from my house, from Fair Circle. Okay, and there's certain clues. Here's a water well, and then and there's a water well in my neighbor's yard right next to where it's believed the underground home in my backyard is at. This has a water well, okay? And I believe the water well may be used for the underground, okay? And this home here had a brick mortar problem like my home did. I was told that brick mortar problem came from a foundation problem. And I believe that's because somebody dug under the house, and that's what broke the mortar joints. Well, that same mortar problem was at this house. This house was owned by a Concho safety guy. Maybe the little girl was murdered in the underground home here. I don't know, I don't know if them owners realize, think, or even know. Maybe there's an underground home in there, right there at their home, But I think that was one of the other ones. That still leaves 2 more. The Midland Development Corp sponsors the Midland Entrepreneurial Challenge, from which Aaron and Jamie was granted the $72,000. I posted this information on my Facebook before, and a few days later, I saw that John Trishidi III, Executive Director for the Midland Development Corp., stepped down from his position. This made me wonder if he knew something about granting Pachlhofer this huge sum of money, and if that was because he had told me about the multiple murders at my home. Okay, and that's what this whole thing is about: hush money, right? Was he paid hush money? Did they use taxpayers' money to cover up multiple murders? I mean, that seems like a kind of a big deal if you're using $72,000 of taxpayers' money to buy the silence of some guy to cover up multiple murders, right? But this is where I found it. Midland Development Corp Executive Director steps down. John Tricchetti III has led the organization since 2019. And here's the time stamped on this article in the press release. And I had just posted, a few days before this, I had posted this story that's similar to what I'm doing tonight, okay, on this video. Okay. And here I said, this is the current board of directors for the Midland Development Court. And that way, legitimate law enforcement, the ones that don't stink under houses and cover up capital murders, the legitimate law enforcement might want to talk to these people at the Midland Development Corp and see if they're giving taxpayers money, hush money, to cover up capital murders. Okay. Maybe they know something. Here's who they are: Sarah Harris, executive director; staff, Kendall Gray, marketing administrative coordinator; staff, Wesley Bounds, the chairman; board, he might be somebody you talk to; Stephen Lowry, first vice chair; board, Chase Gardoff, second vice chairman. He used to be on my friends list. Maybe he still is. I don't know. I had private messaged him before in the past. Barry Simpson, secretary; board, Jill Pennington, treasurer of the board; P. Larcy Sams, director of the board; and Brad Bullock, director of the board. And I just got that from this link. I Googled Midland Board of Directors right here. Okay, there it is. There's the board of directors. Shows that Wesley Bounds, the chairman. Stephen Lowry, Chase Gardoff, and that's the one I was telling you. He was on my friends list. Well, I mean, I believe we chatted on private message before, so he definitely knows about what's going on here. I post about this every single day. There's Sam's, there's Bullock. Okay, Bullock is Chief Operating Officer, Community National Bank. Isn't that interesting? Okay. Well, I'm going to wrap that up. And so there's the question. There's a video right there. Is hush money paid to cover up capital monies? And was that hush money taxpayers' money? Now, that would be an interesting news story if we actually had some legitimate press. That's been a major problem. I said a long time, I wonder how many lives would be saved if the press would have just reported homeowners across America reporting people in the attic after a man in Midland is shot reporting people in his attic. This is Buddy Webb, Midland, Texas.